Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Well, I have attempted on the last few videos to be a little bit more positive, maybe less doom and gloom, trying to encourage you to do things to get ready instead of just talking about all the doom and gloom. But it is a gloomy day today. It's kind of chilly out in the 50s, cloudy, windy. It's just a gloomy day, and so maybe the doom and gloom can come back today. Since it's cool and chilly and doom and gloomish, a little mooseruncoffee.com for the afternoon. I know some of you think it's crazy to drink coffee throughout the day, but it's like drinking water. That's what I tell my wife. She says, you need to drink more water. And I say, this is water. It's just water that's had coffee beans filtered through, but it's still water, right? Anyways, mooseruncoffee.com, great friends of ours and a great product. You know, they make it themselves, small batch, organic, mooseruncoffee.com. Anyways, so let's get on with some doom and gloom. Just about daily. Now, I'm not going to make this as a absolutely factual statement. It's basically based on my perception. But it seems as though that almost daily we're seeing things in the news of protesters clashing, whether they, and most of it right now is pro-Palestinian or pro-Israel protesters, but still some environmental stuff going on. There was the man, I guess, yesterday down in Panama that shot two environmentalist protesters, shot and killed them because they wouldn't get out of the road. There was the Jewish man in California a few days ago that was beaten, knocked down, busted his head open kind of thing, and ended up dying because of that. We're seeing a lot of clashes. There's videos out, whether it's big protests or just small groups. That is on the uptick. We're also seeing just violence in relation to this issue happen. There was, I believe, up in Canada today or yesterday, a couple of Jewish schools were shot at. In Germany, they're having violent outbreaks between pro-Palestinian and pro-Jewish, pro-Israel people. All kinds of stuff that just seems to be upticking. We're seeing more and more of the shooting stuff. It's happening more often. And it's not even at this point of who specifically to blame. It's just that the place is becoming more chaotic and violent. And I know that a lot of us think that some of this is being done on a purpose to, you know, justify whether it's gun control or some other type of control. And that's probably correct also. But that's not necessarily the point that I'm trying to make today. The point that I'm getting at is that things are kind of coming unraveled at the seam. There's a video of Joe Biden stumbling through his words at some kind of union, pro-union kind of meeting thing. You know, he's big on that. Anyways, the point is that his little speech gets interrupted by pro-Palestinian people, which the vast majority of the pro-Palestinian protesters, that's such a mouthful, pro-Palestinian protesters, that the vast majority of them tend to lean to the left, to Democrats. And yet here's a Democrat president, and they interrupted his speech and was yelling and hollering at him. And this isn't the first time it's happened. And if from the outside appearance, it could easily look like that there's starting to be a kind of a breakdown. Now, the point that I'm trying to get at, because I'm making such a long time getting to the point, is that we cannot forget that one of the things that we may have to focus on and deal with and experience is a kind of a civil war-ish breakdown. Will it be an actual civil war? We'll probably never again see a civil war like we did in the mid-19th century. But a civil war in the sense that things just become more violent between various factioning sides, and I suspect it's going to be much different in a lot of ways than the North and the South, because it's probably not going to be just two factions. There's going to be multiple factions. I mean, within the own conservative right, there's multiple factions that could very easily fight each other. This is another big red flag, siren lights flashing going off. that our society, our civilization, our government, our whatever you want to call it, is collapsing. It's falling apart. There's dissent and violence and disagreement and clashes just around every corner. We're always hearing about some kind of, anti-trans, pro-trans, anti-Israel, pro-Israel, anti-this, pro-that, all the time. And while I'm certainly not begrudging anyone the right to free speech and the right to speak out, what we're seeing is more and more of our society being ripped apart. We're seeing it, just being pulled apart, and the very real possibility of clashes happening more and more. Now, of course, I'm a firm believer, and I'm sure that most of you are also, that a lot of this is being paid for by the George Soroses of the world to just foment violence and dissent amongst the people. Regardless of how truthful that is or not, it's happening and it's working. And we're watching our country and our people, American people, just get to the point that they hate each other. And then you add in to that mix, it's like a big recipe, and the more you add, the bigger it gets. You add into the recipe hundreds of thousands of illegals coming across every month. That it's not like it used to be. They're not coming here to assimilate and become American. They're coming here to take what is theirs, and a lot of them are. Now, some of them not so much, but a lot of them are. And it's just causing a breakdown. It is, and it's going to continue to happen, and we have to be prepared for that. A type of civil war that's even more than just cultural and ideological, which is what we already have. We already have a cultural and ideological civil war, a kind of a cold civil war. Once that becomes more and more heated, and we're seeing the progression to a heated, because we're seeing violence already. We're seeing people die. There's like I just said, the Jewish man in California. There was a Jewish lady up in, was it Michigan, maybe? A couple of weeks ago, that we're seeing just violence, and these are maybe ideological. We're seeing racial violence, we're seeing religious violence between groups happen all over. And then we're just seeing people just be violent. They're violent because they're mean and evil. They're violent because they're crazy. They're violent because they're on drugs. Whatever it is, we're watching it happen. And so a civil war for us now is going to probably look very different. It's just going to be a breakdown, and there's just going to be violent groups. You're going to have your Antifas and your neo-Nazis and your BLMs and your biker gangs and your cartels and other types of gangs, all in part of this. Sleeper cells. There's so much. It's just a boiling, cooking, steaming over pot in the United States culturally right now. That is an absolute recipe for disaster. We should be aware of this. I'm sure that most of you probably are, but we should certainly be paying attention to this. And that is one of the things that I tell you all the time, to kind of be paying attention to things. We should be paying attention to it and having our head on a swivel. We talk about occasionally when we see these alerts, and I've done it too. You see these alerts where they're like, oh, there could be a day of rage for, pro-Palestinians, or, something happens and it could be BLM making threats or some terrorist group. We should have that kind of head on a swivel, watching our six going on all the time. We really should, because these kinds of things are continually to happen. And even in the smaller middle America, small town, flyover country, we're seeing it more too. It's not just in the big cities. I mean, it most certainly is in the big cities, and it's happening there more often, but it's happening everywhere else too. And probably if you did the math per capita, it's probably equal to, maybe even greater in some rural areas. And so we certainly need to be paying attention to this, because again, a civil war is not going to be uniformed people on a big open cornfield, with battle lines and cannons flying across. It's going to be little pockets here and there, just like what we're seeing. We're going to see gang activity increase, violent activity, drug activity, all sorts of activity increase. And we're watching it happen right now. The streets of America are becoming a very violent area. And you can deny that, you can say I'm wrong, but the numbers don't lie, folks. The numbers don't lie. The experiences from the people that it's happening to don't lie. There are countless stories I've heard and directly to me and have heard online of people that are like, hey, I live in a big city, and even just 5 years years ago, I could still walk down the streets safely, feel totally safe. Yes, there were certain little areas of crime, but for the most part, I could just take a walk down the street and be fine. And now there's no way you would pay me or could pay me to do that, because the amount of violence and crime that's happening is so high in just a few years. This is what we're seeing. It's a civil war. It really is. And it's not a civil war like what we've seen in past histories. It is a civil war, though, because it's a civil war of a society breaking down and fighting itself. And it may not be fighting itself for necessarily control of the government or even control of land or anything like that, but they are fighting themselves because of ideology, because of religion, race, money, all kinds of stuff. It is a breakdown of our government, of our country, of our society. And we're watching it happen, and we have to be prepared for that. And so when you're out and about, whatever you're doing, wherever you're at, you know, this is something I tell my own people here, my wife, our friends, everyone. I tell them all, you should always go out with the idea that danger could happen. You shouldn't just, you know, even if it's just running to the store, going to Walmart, to the grocery store, wherever it is, you know, the doctor's office. You should always leave your home with the idea that you could see or experience directly danger, and so prepare for that. Whether it's carrying a weapon or carrying gear or just simply being alert as to what's going on. So many people that experience violence, they're doing it because they're victims of that violence because they're not paying attention. I see still all the time. You go out in public and go to the store and you see people walking out in the parking lot like this. You know, they're not paying attention to their surroundings. They have no concept of what's going on. Getting in and out of your car in a parking lot is one of the more vulnerable places because it's easy to pin you in. So that's where you should be heightened the most and paying attention, because this level of violence that we're seeing, it is spreading. Is it spreading to the point that in days or weeks we could see it just outbreaks everywhere? Maybe not, but we are seeing it spread. We are seeing it increase. And the amount of increase in areas that's not really ever seen violence over the past 3 years is quite great. And we should be paying attention to that, and we should be acting accordingly, getting ourselves ready. And when you go out, stay on alert. I mean, it's not like you're on the edge of your seat, but you should learn to stay on alert. You should train yourself and learn how to do that. There's videos online that can help you with that, but a lot of it is just common sense, because we are seeing this country break down into at the very least, a pre-Civil War type of environment, and by some accounts it could be considered an actual civil war. So folks, start doing this on a daily basis. I know many of you already do, but you need to keep your head on a swivel. You need to be prepared. Watch your six and have a plan, because you never know when these acts of violence may come your way. Folks, it's time to get your houses in order and to prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.